Welcome to Let's Build a Willys Jeep. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to properly assemble your driver's side tie rod and your passenger side tie rod, and how to thread in your steering tie rod ends on your tire side into your tie rod, and also how to thread in your center part into your tie rod on both your passenger and driver's side, and which length you need to install on which side. And there's two different tie rods. There's the longer one and the shorter one. The longer one is 18.5 inches about, which goes in the passenger side. And the shorter one, which goes in the driver's side, which is about 17.25 inches. So the small tie rod has two ball joints that will be attached to it. There's the, on this one, there'll be one on this side that'll thread on, and one on this side. And then two clamps on each of them that'll hold the threads on. Well, the longer one will have this special one that attaches directly to the bell crank and connects the smaller one to the bigger one, which will go on this side. And then the other ball joint will go on this side, and that will make up the tie rods. And then one thread is left-hand thread and one is right-hand thread, and that's so when the steering is all together, you can spin the tie rods and adjust the toe in and toe out to adjust the steering and the way the tires are positioned, like this way and this way. Once you have these threaded into the tie rods, you will now thread these into their spots located on the Jeep. And then you'll tighten these nuts down to compress them in. And then with a cotter pin, you will secure them and bend the cotter pin out. And lastly, with this one, there's no Zerk installed. So with this kit right here, you're gonna put the Zerk into the bottom. So that's so you can grease up the ball joints, and then the cotter pin to secure the nut. We are now going to start working on assembling the tie rods. First, we're going to work on the passenger tie rods. You have to use this one right here, which is a bit different than the rest, and it's for the passenger side as it connects to the bell crank on the frame. So I will use a little bit of lubricant as it'll thread on it easier. Give a quick spray and thread it on. Thread it. So we have it threaded almost all the way in. And now we work on the other side. So it's the same idea, but you have to use one of these types of ends, which are a bit different than the other one we just did. But first, you have to make sure you install your clamps, because then you can't get them on if you put the other tie rod on. So you slide them both on, like that. And now use a little bit of lubricant to the threads. And now just thread it on. You want to have it so it's threaded on most of the way on both sides, and have it kind of pointing the same direction, so when you install them it'll go in easier. But the length probably is not set properly, but we'll have to readjust that when it's installed in the Jeep, and I'll show you guys how to do that when we get to that stage. Now, to finish the tie rod assembly, we need to work on the driver tie rod. So with the tie rod end, we're going to screw it on. So a little bit of lubricant, and we will thread it on, but in this one is a reverse thread. It's confusing. So now you just thread it on, but unloosening is tightening, which is kind of confusing sometimes. We are now going to work on the final component of the driver's side tie rod. So first we're going to put the clamps on before we put the last tie rod end on. Here's the last tie rod end. I give it a quick blast of lubricant and thread it on to the tie rod. And in this application, you can see it is a normal thread, right hand thread. Thread it all the way on till it's almost no thread showing. And we'll probably have to adjust this one once it is installed on the Jeep. Now I'm going to give you guys a quick recap of these two different tie rods. The first tie rod we have here is the passenger tie rod. So it has a right hand thread tie rod end on this side, the longer tube, 2 clamps to hold the threads, and a different tie rod on this side, as this tie rod will attach the passenger to the driver. And I'll show you guys how this one is installed in a later video. And the driver here has a right hand thread on this side, the shorter tie rod, 2 clamps to hold the threads on, and a left hand tie rod on this side. Also make sure to install the Zerk on this tie rod right here. And now we will work on the install on the Jeep. You're gonna have to tune back for another video on that install. Thanks for watching Let's Build a Willys Jeep, and make sure to subscribe.